Welcome in. Good evening. It is the Beast of the East podcast here on the Believe Podcast Network and also coming to you from Willis Digital Media, home of the Palmcast. Again, we are Beast of the East presented by betonline.ag and playactionpools.com. Joining alongside is my main man, Craig Ladd. What's up, Craig?
Corey, glad to see you. We had a little taste of some really good SEC games over the weekend, and it's only going to get better from here on.
Absolutely, man. It was exciting. It was the appetizer to what's going to be an exciting SEC slate of games. We'll talk about Auburn, Penn State, of course. I'll jump into that one because that game was exciting. Too exciting to not talk about. I know our guys over at Best of the West are going to really get a deep dive into that one, but I would like to weigh in on that because that was an exciting game. Of course, Bama, Florida, which was a crossover game, and then Georgia hosting South Carolina in an Eastern Divisional matchup, plus some of the blowouts from the FCS SEC matchups as well. But we are presented by betonline.ag. We're back and better than ever, and all eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back to start another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all pro and college action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline continues to be the number one source for everything football. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today. Receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit for just signing up. Don't forget to use the promo code NFL100. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sports book experts. Man, they do a great job here. Also, one of the things you can bet on is the odds on the next USC head coach. Any guesses on who has the greatest odds, Craig?
You mean the best odds of being the coach?
That's true. Yes,
I'm going to say Luke Fickell.
Luke Fickell is 9-1. He is tied with Bob Stoops and Tony Elliott at 9-1. That is not correct, though. There is somebody that is sitting at 6-1.
Interesting. Is he in the college ranks or the pro ranks?
He is in the college ranks. He's in the Big Ten.
Harbaugh?
Nah, he's not even on the list.
Boy, that's a good one. Sure, it's not Ryan Day, is it?
It is not Ryan Day. Think of water.
Think of water.
Water.
Things
you would do on the water.
You ski on the water.
You ski on the water, but what else do you do on the water?
You swim in it.
You swim, okay. What else?
You float.
You row the boat.
The boat.
PJ Fleck, 6-1 odds right now.
Yeah, row the boat.
Boat. And then you have Mario Cristobal, 7-1, James Franklin, 8-1. Then, of course, our guy from the SEC, Bill O'Brien, is 14-1. He's the only one from the SEC that made it. Other notables, Joe Moorhead, 10-1. Gary Patterson, 10-1. That's never going to happen. Chris Peterson, don't know why he's 10-1, but he ain't coming out of retirement. And then, of course, that rounds out the list of bettable odds on the USC head coaching search.
And no Lane Kiffin. Can you believe it? I'm being facetious.
What about Sark? Huh? What about Sark? So,
that's right.
That's that's pretty good. But anyway, lots of exciting action, Craig, this weekend. Yes, how about them? Guy Cody Caldwell, man. How about them Rebels? Yes, they are right now. They're sitting at number 2 in the West for me. I love them Rebels, but the BYU coach, whoever said that, yeah, that's somebody I talked about it as somebody I would like to see. Kalani Sitake, great coach, had a huge win. Not to go beast of the Mountain West here, but yeah, Kalani Sitake, huge win over Arizona State this weekend in Pac-12 After Dark. So, but let's start with that Bama-Florida game, shall we? Craig, watching that game, I coming into it, I thought, okay, it's going to be, Bama's going to steamroll, and then they get up 21-3, and I'm thinking, okay, they're going to steamroll. I can switch over and watch some other stuff and just kind of flip around. But then again, and then Bama went three straight 3-and-outs. They gave up a score to Florida. Florida's crowd got back into it, and it became really tight. So Bryce Young, 22 of 35, 240 yards and 3 touchdowns, looked good in stretches, but also looked very uncomfortable in other stretches. Hats off to Florida's defense. They kind of got after it, but again, they're a momentum based defense, and once they get a little shred of momentum, it's like a snowball effect. They really kind of start coming after you, and once they started creating some havoc and creating some discomfort for Bryce Young, you really kind of saw this Alabama offense start to struggle a little bit.
I agree with you, Corey. I was I like you thought, oh, here we go. I can switch off this game, and I actually did switch off of it for a little while. And I tell you what, I was impressed with the way Florida ran the football against Alabama. Never thought that would happen. And they did. They ran the ball and ran the ball very, very
Yes.
well, especially in the second half. They outscored Alabama. From the second quarter on, they outscored Alabama 26-10.
Yes, it was outstanding. Like the run game was that. I mean, that's honestly the part I was. Emory Jones had such success running, and of course Damian Pierce and Malik Davis. Um, I thought they had a really big day running the ball for Florida. Looking at Malik Davis, he had 10 carries for 86 yards, 8.6 per. Scored a touchdown. That was that was one of the bright spots for this Florida offense. Finally, getting a running back going a little bit, especially against a defense of the caliber of Alabama. But again, what do we know about this Crimson Tide defense? They struggle with athletic quarterbacks, and they struggled with Emory Jones.
I agree. And, Richardson, he didn't play. So, already Florida was coming into the game without one of their big weapons. And, they got more out of the running backs than I anticipated in this ball game. And like I said, I was thoroughly impressed with what I saw from Florida. And by the way they took it to Alabama, and we've seen this before. Last year we're talking about the Ole Miss game and all what happened and how many yards and all of this, and then they righted the ship and went from there. You can say what you will about this. Florida's a tough place to play. I don't care what kind of team they have or what kind of team
Right.
you have coming in there. That's a tough place to play. And, a lot of really good teams have lost there. Alabama came out with a win. That was what they
snuck out of
wanted
there
to
with a
do.
win.
And that's what happened. Whether it's by 2 points or by 40, doesn't matter. It's a win.
Hey, you go to the swamp, you get a win. That's that's enough for me. But
Absolutely. I
but
agree.
the chat's up and going, Craig. It's blazing right now. We're saying playing Alabama this year is like tuning into Rocky IV after the Russian gets cut. Somebody was laughing about Joe Moorhead being mentioned. Bama's beatable, and if Florida can get them, Ole Miss will also. I'm intrigued by that guy. I'm intrigued by it. We appreciate the comments there. You need an elite quarterback performance just to compete with Bama. Not really anymore. Again, Emory Jones as a passer wasn't that great. I mean, he was good in spots where he needed to be occasionally, but he was pretty inaccurate for the most part. Converted some big third downs in the second half, but outside of that, really didn't get much through the air. It was all running. He had 19 carries for 80-something yards there, but Jake was yelling at the TV the whole day. I'm sure his blood pressure was high, probably still is. Can't wait to tune in tomorrow night to Best of the West and check that one out and see, just kind of what he says. I wish I could go live on I wish I could join live on the chat with Best of the West, but I'm usually recording. I'm on like 17 different podcasts, so I'm usually recording on Tuesday nights. So I usually catch Best of the West not live, so I can't comment, but it's a great show if you want to see if you want to hear everything about the West with Jake Thomas and Kevin Bohanna. But yeah, I mean, just looking at Alabama's offense, you know, it wasn't as explosive as I thought it was going to be. I thought, Brian Robinson had a really good day running the ball, but I mean, you look at and what you've been used to, um, what you've been used to with this Alabama offense is big plays, chunk plays, things like that, and throws that really came easy. And obviously, the last three quarterbacks to start at Alabama, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, and Mac Jones, not in that particular order, have all flourished with RPOs, getting the ball downfield, and it certainly doesn't hurt when you have 4 first rounders to throw the ball to as well, and one to and a first rounder to hand it off to, and a couple of first round offensive linemen blocking for you. That never hurts. Um, they don't have that right now. They don't have those guys. I mean, Mechie may be a first round guy. Bryce Young eventually will be a first round guy. He's not quite right now, but he's still young, still early into his days as a starter. So, are you concerned about this Alabama offense, or is it just one of those things where they just need a little bit more time?
I think, if you would have told me, uh, you know, this time last week that Florida would have nearly 250 yards rushing and Alabama would be under 100, I would have said that the men in the padded truck need to come pick you up. But I was really surprised by that, And you're right. I don't know if I'm yet concerned about it. And I still think they're playing their way into what kind of team they're going to be. Um, you know, as we said before, as we said during the preseason, Corey, the amount of talent that they lost, uh, there, there's just no way. And I think we were mesmerized by the Miami game and how well they did, and we see how bad Miami is. They got
Yeah.
crushed by Michigan State on their home field, but
Mm-hmm.
I think we were mesmerized by that game, and they still have some work in progress. I think and that's to be expected with all the talent that they lost last year.
Yeah, I mean, it was going to be a huge ask to expect Alabama to keep on that same level. You lose your superstar coordinator and 5 first rounders. I mean, that's a tough deal to come back from. I don't care who you are, and especially if you're Alabama, those guys lack experience. And when you go into a hostile environment like the Swamp, and it was sold out, and it was as crazy as it ever is, I mean, that's not an easy deal to do. And you jump up 21-3, and with inexperienced teams, you see this roller coaster, right? It's a heavy ebb and flow type game. It's these Bama teams are used to, like, as soon as they come out of the gates hot, and they just stay kind of going like this, and they never really level off. And then next thing you know, it's like 45-3, and you know last year's Bama team would have been 50 at halftime
Yeah.
on this Florida team, and that's saying that, and that's not enough Florida. That's just how good last Bama team was.
Well, I think you know what? Probably the worst thing that could have happened to Alabama in this game was them to jump out like they did. Uh,
Mm.
I think if it had been a little bit closer to begin with, they may have lost, their edge a little bit with a 21-3 first quarter lead. Thinking the same way you and I were thinking. Oh, here we go. I can switch off the TV and watch somebody else. And
Yeah.
that's obviously not what happened. And like I said, probably was the worst thing that could have happened to them
Mhm.
because like I said, I think they lost their edge a little bit. But I'm not going to take anything away from Florida because I thought they played an outstanding game and was in it right there at the end. I mean, you miss a 2-point conversion to tie the game, and that's all you could ask for. If you ask Dan Mullen, you've got the ball, and you're a 2-point conversion away from tying the ball game up. With what, I don't know how many seconds, 30 seconds to go. I'll just say I think he
Yeah.
would take that.
Yeah. I mean, you've got that going. You got that going against the number one team in the country, who that's the target for everyone, not in just your conference, but in the entire country. And you got them on the ropes. And unfortunately for them, they couldn't land that knockout blow. And that's not, that's something that an inexperienced team can't do. I mean, Alabama as a team, as a program, have been in that position, so they kind of know, okay, this we've let them hang around long enough. Let's just deliver that kill shot and let's go. And they did, stopping that 2 point conversion. They let them hang around long enough. It was a little too close for comfort, um, but Alabama's walking away with a win, getting ready to regrouping, and then same with Florida. Florida's getting ready for Tennessee this week. So um, yeah, we're seeing some Ole Miss stuff in the chat. 268 and 280. Ole Miss's rushing total the last 2 years. Um, I believe that's against Alabama, which again, Ole Miss is a good rushing team. I mean, let's not think that let's not look at Lane Kiffin's system and say it's a it's like the air raid, like what's happening down in Starkville. No, it's a run first system, and Sparty for the win. I never thought I'd say that, but they absolutely destroyed Miami, so that's not looking good there. But to put a bow on that, good job, Florida. They're they handled themselves well. Unfortunately for them, they lost. But I think they took a lot away from it as far as they know they're a threat running the ball. They know they have a two-headed monster now with Malik Davis and Emory Jones running the ball. And then when when Anthony Richardson gets better, that's going to be even more dangerous for the Gators. So look out for them. Obviously, they're always tough, so it doesn't matter. Florida, a down Florida team is, that's they're still tough, and that game for Georgia is always going to be tough. They're always going to be a force in the SEC East, no matter what we say. No matter how bad we say they're going to be, they're always going to be a force in the East. So, our next game, Craig, uh, was the other conference matchup before we go into the West. That was Georgia, South Carolina, a game that saw South Carolina get a backdoor cover. So anybody that picked the dogs had the cover and then lost the cover. Let's start with South Carolina. The good, the bad, the ugly. The good, they can complete a deep ball. Josh Van surprised me as a wide receiver and as a deep threat for South Carolina. I thought Luke Doty had a really nice game when he wasn't getting put on his back. So that's the good. He did a good job of picking up first downs, distributing the ball, making tough throws with guys breathing down his neck, connecting on the deep ball on several occasions. A couple of them got called back, but um, their offensive line is holy cow is bad. It's real bad. So for South Carolina, that's the bad and the ugly. They're just not in sync yet. I think they're a team that plays really hard. They're really resilient. They're going to be good. The good, the bad, the ugly for Georgia. JT looked as sharp as I've ever seen him. JT Daniels was throwing dimes, deep balls everywhere. He hit Jermaine Burton and Adonai Mitchell. JT's stats were 23 of 31 for 303, 3 touchdowns. The bad on JT Daniels, he threw a really ugly pick, and his pocket mobility is probably going to get him hurt. The concern is the running game. Only rushing for 184 yards when you have that stable of running backs, it's kind of concerning to me. But I thought James Cook had a really nice day. 4 carries for 51, average of 12.8, and a score. I, I don't know what the deal is with the run game. Maybe it's the pass game has improved, so the run game just had to take a hit. I'm not sure what to make of it, but it was okay. Not certainly up to what Georgia's used to. So, your initial thoughts on this game, Craig?
You know, South Carolina is very limited on offense. That's we thought that coming into the year, and it's been
Mhm.
proven against that. Of course, Georgia has an outstanding defense, so they're going to make a lot of offenses look bad. Ask Clemson, but and UAB, but they're just limited. Corey, they don't have the firepower. And it's going to take Beamer a while to get that firepower. He needs Clemson to sort of falter a little bit, which would help him in state. But you know, they just don't have the horses. And when you don't have the horses, you're obviously easier to defend. You know, I mean, to be quite honest, who I mean, I don't know who you would point to say, okay, this is a guy that we really need to stop in order to win this game. I don't know who that person is when you play South Carolina.
No, and the answer is there isn't anybody. I mean, I guess Josh Van is. I guess he's kind of emerging in that. I'm not
Yeah,
real sure,
yeah,
but when you look at that, that's something that can be
yeah. I
a
don't know if he does that.
possibility.
Yeah, game in and game out. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
no, I don't think they really have been able to find what they're good at game in and game out. I
Right.
think they're playing musical chairs at quarterback. They didn't know what they had in Luke Doty. They just took a few shots because why not, right?
Yeah.
And they hit on a few. So I'm thinking that's going to be. I'm thinking he's going to be more a part of the game plan as they go. So I know South Carolina fans are excited about that.
Yeah, and you talk about the Georgia running game. I see a multitude of weapons. You get Milton, White, and Cook all rushed for over 50 yards in this ball game. All had over nearly seven over 6 point over a 6 yard per carry average. I mean, that's
Right.
impressive when you're doing that. I mean, to be doing that, Milton had 6.6, White 6.4, and you mentioned Cook at 12.8. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
that's being efficient is what that is.
Yeah.
And you know, I would, if I'm a Georgia fan, I would not be worried at all about it. The dispersing of the wealth there at the running back position is only going to make your team better.
That's good. That's good to hear. And I think hitting a couple deep shots, we have to sacrifice some rushing stats because we're hitting deep shots over the top, I'm cool with that too. I just didn't, some people get concerned with that. So who knows, right?
Well, I tell you what, as a Tennessee alumni, I wish I had that concern for the
Wish you
for the
had
Big
that problem.
Orange.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's funny. I love that. Yeah, in a few years, give Heupel some time. He'll get those problems. Hendon Hooker I think, has become the answer there. So the chat is rocking and rolling. Jake, what's up, man? Did we miss you? Always miss you. Windows 95. I upgraded to Windows 98. But yeah, the top three quarterbacks in the SEC through week 3, looked up the official Southeastern Conference statistics, and they have right now they have Will Rogers, Matt Corral, and Connor Bazelak as the top 3 when it comes to passing yardage. When it comes to passing touchdowns, Max Johnson leads the way with 11, Bryce Young with 10, Matt Corral with 9. JT Daniels only with 3 because he missed a game. Emory Jones is down at the bottom with just 2. And then, so Will Rogers is anywhere depending on the categories. Let's see who has the most picks this year. Emory Jones has the most picks with 5. Will Levis with 4. And Ken Seals with 3. JT Daniels with 2. One was a really good play by a defender, and the other was just a really bad, ill-advised throw. So, to answer your question in the chat, that's where we stand. Glad to see Tennessee get upset with a upset win over Tennessee Tech. Nice, Jake. Oh boy, check this out, man. Oh man. All right, let's see if that gets any better. I've turned into a gear shit now. Man, I
Yes.
gotta. There we go. There we go.
Come on, Corey. If we're going to have a professional podcast, you're going to have to get professional programming.
That's right. I might have to get a freaking internet hub put right on the ceiling up here.
I
man.
mean, you're in the heart of the city of Nashville. I'm not going to say what I want to say, but I'm way out.
BFE,
way
right?
out, way out. And
yeah, I'm not
my
sure.
internet's better than yours, Corey.
I think AT&T is like I think they're zapping me here. I think they're killing my vibe here.
Where I am, they can't even spell internet. How's that? So that tells you where how far out I am.
You see, Craig, they don't even know where you are,
Well,
right?
that's true,
They don't
and
even
they
know where you
should
are,
not know that.
right? I think the I think somebody picked up the phone with my AOL. It knocked me out. Um, yeah, I know,
I
right, Jake?
heard the screeching of yours coming back on that the old connection sound.
Burr, burr, burr.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got it. Yeah, Mom, get off the phone. Yeah. It doesn't help that the weather sucks. When the weather sucks, my internet signal goes down a little bit too. So I'm not sure why that happens, but it does. It's kind of like my creaky knees or whatever. Um, oh yeah, I want 56K. Oh boy, yeah. Let the internet jokes let them keep coming. Bring them on. All right. Here's another. We're gonna talk about Jake's favorite topic. So Jake, you can look up some more internet jokes while we talk about this. But Auburn Penn State, Craig. I watched that game. It was very entertaining, very exciting. Uh, Thoughts on this one?
Wow, you're right. It was a terrific football game. Back and forth, back and forth. You know, Auburn could have very easily won that football game.
Yeah,
But it's again, when you're in Happy Valley, that's not an easy place to play, and those people were rabid. It's the first SEC home game. I, I can't remember now what I heard, but I want to say it was back in the 30s, but I may be wrong with that. That they've hosted, it was a whiteout. Uh, Again, extremely tough place to play. I thought Auburn played well. You know, as I said, they could have easily won that game, and I thought they played well.
yeah,
Made some mistakes that were costly mistakes at inopportune times that ended up being their downfall there. But
yeah.
I thought they played well.
Yeah, that trick play, the wide out double reverse pass
Yes.
went very poorly for Auburn, set up a score. And I think that when you look at that touchdown, it put Penn State up 21-10. I think that was kind of the touchdown that said, okay, Penn State, we got control of this game no matter what Auburn does. You know, no matter how close it seems to get, Penn State was never really going to lose that game at that point. And that was kind of the start of the very steep uphill climb that Auburn was going to have to make to win that game. And of course they didn't make it as well. So, but
Yeah,
they
and
could have done some things better.
go ahead. Yeah, I would have wanted Tank Bigby to have a better game in that. I think obviously Penn State's focus was to stop him. You know, in order to beat Auburn, we've got to stop him. I don't think they were worried about Bo Nix. Bo Nix is Bo Nix, and he's going to implode uh, at a moment's notice. It was
Oh yeah.
Bigby that had to be stopped in order to beat Auburn.
Absolutely, and we knew that going in, it was going to be a Bo Nix type of game because we know Tank was going to have, he had a pair of rushing touchdowns. He had a really nice game there. I thought they went away from him at times.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. There were certain points of the game where I'm thinking, what is Auburn really trying to do here? And it was it was head scratching at some points. And some points you're like, okay, Auburn has a chance here. Auburn just might take control of this game, and then double reverse pass, and here we go. But I thought Auburn's going to be a tough team. They just got to figure out how to play with each other. They got to figure out just like through the course of the game, like this group is not really used to playing four quarters, especially in an environment like that. They're not used to winning games like that right now, and because so many times they falter, and it's just it's baffling, really. And no, I will not hush, Jake. It seemed like the only team they were able to beat was Alabama. That's because that's their Super Bowl, really. And then Gus Malzahn is the most successful coach against Nick Saban. So, but Auburn's just got to find ways to win these games in the future if Brian Harson's going to stay there.
Yeah, I mean, Nick's has got to. If they're going to win a game like this, he's going to have to throw the ball for more than 185 yards. He was 21 of 37 for 185. That's just not going to cut it against really good competition. Just not going to. Big B. I said he didn't perform that well. I expected more from him, even though he rushed for 102 yards, and as you said, Corey, 2 touchdowns. But I thought Penn State did a good job of limiting the big plays for him. His longest run in this ball game was 18 yards, and that's just making him plug and carried the ball 23 times and only had a 4.4 yard per average.
Tough sledding,
doing
man.
that. So yeah, he fought hard for his yards.
He absolutely did. So, but a very good game nonetheless. Very entertaining game nonetheless. I don't care what you say, Jake. It was good. I don't care how badly you hate Auburn. That was a game that Auburn probably should have won, but did not. So, but moving on, we're going to put a bow on week 3. Obviously, home of the Palmcast, Ole Miss, 61-21 over Tulane. No concerns there. Arkansas ran it up on Georgia Southern, so no hangover there for the Razorbacks. Kentucky 28-23 winners over UT Chat. Any concerns there?
I think they had a hangover from their big win over Missouri. And it's very easy for that to happen, Corey. And I'm sure Stoops was terrified of this game all week. He was because he had a feeling, it's Chattanooga. I can tell these guys how good Chattanooga is all I want, but they're not idiots. They know they're an FCS team. They can see what they've done, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously they're not going to have the same intensity for this game that they had for Missouri.
Absolutely. And speaking of Missouri, they were 59-28 victors over Southeast Missouri State. Your Vols 56-0 over Tennessee Tech. I don't know if the Vols have scored 56 points in a single practice on air, so that was good to see.
I think that was all they scored last year total for the year. Was 56.
You might be right, but Hendon Hooker seems to be the option, so that's good for the Vols. He was the leading passer and leading rusher in that game. Let's all take one big sigh of disappointment for Mississippi State. They lost to Memphis 31-29, and of course Vanderbilt got doubled up against Stanford 41-23. Thought Vanderbilt was going to be in that game for a minute. They weren't. And Stanford ran all over them, kind of like I thought they would. So there you go.
Yeah, I watched a decent amount of that. I was flipping around when the Penn State Auburn game was on the commercial. I flipped over to that, and Vandy was in this game for a little while, and then things kind of collapsed on them before halftime. They end up getting behind 27-14 at the half, and then it was down. They're not ready. They're not ready to beat a team like Stanford right now. They don't have just like South Carolina. They don't have the horses to do that right now. Say what you will about Stanford. This is probably not the best Stanford team we've seen, in the last 5 years, but still. They have a lot of talent, and they're going to recruit very well, and they're going to recruit all over the country. The Stanford brand goes everywhere. They get kids from everywhere, and Stanford that would have been a really, really good win for Vanderbilt if they could have pulled that off.
Well, speaking of Vanderbilt, we're going to put a bow on. We're going to put a bow on week 3. We're going to transition into week 4, but before we really kind of get into the meat of the action, we're excited to be partnering with playactionpools.com this season to bring you some interactive fun on the sport that we love the most. you'll be able to get in on the action with our playactionpools.com football pick'em challenge, which is open to everyone. I forgot to make my picks. Here's how it works. Sign up for the contest Believe Football Pick'em at playactionpools.com and then get your picks in each week. We're going to select the 10 highest profile games of the week between NFL and college. Whoever gets the most picks correct each week will win a pair of electric sunglasses and a pair of DC shoes. Electric sunglasses, that's a brand, not a
I
not
was about
not
to
a
ask.
not
I
a not
might
a
need some of those
function.
electric
Yeah,
sunglasses there.
it's a brand. Electric
Okay.
eyewear.
All
Yeah.
right.
So again, go to playactionpools.com and sign up for the contest Believe. That's BLEAV football pick'em. And that's a big and. If you plan on hosting your own football contest, go to playactionpools.com today. They've got survivors, they got pick'ems, and as well as a cool sportsbook style concept called Build Your Bankroll, which is something I plan on investigating. It sounds really awesome. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it sounds awesome. So you should check it out. Playactionpools.com, your new home for all of your office sports pools. So get on over there and make those picks, something I forgot to do. But anyway, going back, speaking of Vandy, I think the Vanderbilt Mafia has got hold of my camera again. They, yep, 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 yep. They got a hold of my camera and said, no, 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 you can't talk. I think that's just what I do, right? I think that's just what I do. My landline's going out again. Yeah, I think somebody's like snipping my wires. But so looking at Georgia Vanderbilt, what are we seeing about this matchup?
Not a lot of Vanderbilt. That's what I'm seeing, especially in the end zone.
Right. Yeah.
uh,
Seals
I
is
mean,
going to be
what's gonna what have you seen early on that gives you any inclination that Vanderbilt's going to be remotely in this ball game? They're going to be.
done.
I would say they're going to be probably. I'm going to guess 31-point underdog in this. That's just a guess off the top of my head.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what it is. I have no idea. I haven't seen it, but I would say that's easy what they'll be giving up.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised there. And to get the exact, it is 34 and a half.
34 and a half. So a little
The,
more than I thought. Yeah.
yep. Yep. 34 and a half, which is insane
Yep.
for a conference game. So um, Georgia is 58, 20, and 2 straight up in 80 all-time head-to-head matchups against Vanderbilt.
Think about this too, Corey. You know, Georgia was at home last week and they were only a 31-point favorite over South Carolina. They're at Vanderbilt and they're 34 and a half. So the odds makers think South Carolina is that much better than Vanderbilt. Interesting.
Yep. It's yeah, when you lose to an FCS ball club, that kind of happens. But I think with this receiving core, I think that the only thing Vanderbilt has going for them is they can hit a few deep shots and give themselves a chance. Also, they can try to lull Georgia to sleep with this early kick in Nashville. That environment happens to or tends to do that to people. But one of the things they saw that South Carolina was able to hit some deep passes over the top. Ken Seals can certainly throw it if he gets time, and they have some receivers, especially Cam Johnson, that can go and get it. So that's probably the one thing they're circling in their game plan and saying, hey, this is how we're going to attack and try to frustrate Georgia. But at the end of the day, Nakobe Dean's going to make 1.5 million tackles. Jordan Davis is going to toss a few people, and he's going to be like a runaway industrial refrigerator. And it's going to be ugly here in Nashville. That's no surprise. I don't think anybody is going into this game if you're a Vanderbilt fan and thinking you're going to win. I mean, you're hoping to win. You're hoping something happens, but unless there's a rash of injuries, knock on wood, hopefully there's not, but unless there's a rash of injuries or something weird happens, I think this is going to be a really, really tough game for Vandy.
I don't think after this ball game you'll be asking me the question next week of, are you concerned about the Georgia running game?
I think you're right. Nah, I'm not gonna ask you that question. I'm
I
just
don't
trying
think
to.
you'll have to.
No, I won't. Jake Vandy with the upset. I don't even think you can even joke about that, can you? So yeah, just wanted to mention that it's actually a conference game. This is a week that's loaded with good conference games. You have our next one on the slate is BC at, or actually
Missouri
it's
at BC.
Missouri
Yeah.
at BC.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say. Got a little tongue tied there. So what do you think about this one? Is Missouri, like, they're one of those teams that they're kind of, it's weird. They're like a weird team to pick because they've got some players, they've got some things that make them really good, but they just don't jump off the page to me.
No, they don't jump off the page, and they don't have the superstar guys. I really like Basilak a lot,
Yeah.
but they don't have those superstar guys either. They don't have the
No.
guys that you're gonna wow about or anything like that. But I think this is going to be an interesting game, an intriguing matchup between these two. And unfortunately, it's on the same time as LSU, Mississippi State, and Georgia Vandy. So I
Mhm.
don't know how much I'm going to be watching it, but like I said, I think this is sort of an intriguing matchup and could be a really, really good football game. I think on paper, I think it will be. Uh,
Uh-huh.
you know, Missouri is not going to have an easy time with this, and I, I I think they can win this ball game, but it's not going to be an easy win for them if they do. They're going to have to pull it out at the end.
No, I mean, you look at the season stats as they stack up so far. Um, they're both averaging roughly the same amount of points scored, 40.3 for Missouri, 41.3 for Boston College. Points allowed. Boston College playing really stingy defense so far, and I don't know if that's a scheduled thing or not, but they're allowing 10.3 per, and Missouri is allowing 29. And Missouri's got the upper hand in total yards. And then also the turnover margin. Missouri has a slight advantage of a +4 turnover margin versus a +2 for Boston College, having 5 takeaways and 3 giveaways, whereas Missouri has 5 takeaways and 1 giveaway. So Missouri, their best deal is staying on the field offensively. For them, they just really need to get some momentum going uh, offensively, chew up yards, chew up clock, control the ball, and have their defense get a few takeaways and really just kind of try to steal a few possessions. I think when you deal with a good ACC team like this, you're as long as you can do that, as long as your defense can get after them, you're good. But the last time we kind of picked an ACC upset over the SEC, they were mud stomped, and that was NC State over Mississippi State. So there's a discrepancy, and that discrepancy is, one that's typical for an SEC team. But I feel like they're just better up front, or potentially better up front, and that's what I noticed about NC State and Mississippi State. Mississippi State was just better up front, especially on the defensive line.
Yeah, I think you're right. You hear this all the time, and I heard Kirk Herbstreit mention this in the Auburn in Penn State game. That's where the SEC, and I'm not. This is no revelation. That's where the SEC is the strongest of any conference, and that's especially along the defensive line. And you talk about recruiting. Uh, that's the toughest position to recruit is the defensive line because
Yeah,
there's only so many of them, and everybody wants them, and most of them are in SEC country. So guess what? The SEC gets them, and
yeah,
that's what makes them head and shoulders. Well, I won't say head and shoulders, but it makes them, the best conference in football, in college football, because of you know the athletes, the amount of talent they have along that defensive line. To me, that's the biggest difference, and you really see it when you see, as you said, Mississippi State and NC State when they play out of conference and in bowl games, you really see the difference.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where the discrepancies lie. I think it's when you look at it, I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. And that's honestly where Mississippi State, where I thought NC State was a lot better. I guess when we previewed the ACC on Illegal Motion, that we looked at NC State and said this team could challenge for this team could challenge Clemson for the division title. They're really good up front. They got a lot of experience, but that didn't seem to matter when they rolled into Starkville, heard some cowbells, and just laid down. So does Boston College do that? I'm not real sure. It's a home game for Boston College, so they do a good job up there. They've been playing really well, and they're a team that surprised me. But are they ready to win a game like this against a team that we thought was going to be contenders for an SEC East title? Probably not. I really like Missouri in this game. I don't really like them big, but I think it'll be a good competitive matchup, and I think Missouri will come out on top of that one.
No, I agree with you on that. I think it'll be a really good football game. I give Missouri a slight edge. This is going to be you know a pick 'em probably to a 3-point spread, and
Yeah.
but I'm like you. I think Missouri pulls it out at the end.
Absolutely. Well, the game that Tennessee fans are excited and nervous about this year, probably mostly every year. Tennessee, Florida, the annual the early SEC East showdown, which used to be the battle for East supremacy back in the '90s and early 2000s for the most part. It's a matchup that right now is heavily favored towards the Gators. Um, but Tennessee fans are hoping to be back into that one and make that an annual big time matchup. Still is in a lot of people's eyes. Still is in my eyes. Still a big time matchup. Just because I know what Tennessee could be. So the Tennessee is the favorite. It's a 20-point spread, which is
You mean Florida? You
yeah.
said
Did I say
Tennessee.
I said Tennessee? And Tennessee are
I
20
think I'll
point
take the
dogs.
Gators if they're
Yeah,
getting 20 at home.
yeah, I know, right? That's easy money right there. No, Florida is 20-point favorites there. Um, Florida and its opponents have scored at least 60 and a half points or more just once this season. Looking at some trends and some stats, Florida has one win against the spread this year.
Hmm,
One win
interesting.
against the spread. That was last week against Alabama. They covered the spread. Um, so yeah, when you look at the tail of the tape here, Florida scoring 33 points per game, Tennessee scoring 42.7, and that is with the matchup against Pitt, and also another FBS matchup with Bowling Green. They've allowed just 15.7 points per game on average. I guess that 56-0 thrashing really drove that average down. They gave up a big number to Pitt, but again, their defense is a defense that's very stingy, but also gets very, very tired as well. Tennessee, the concerning part about both these teams is they are both -2 in the turnover margin. So both teams have got to fix that. Florida has allowed more yardage this year. They're a more aggressive style of defense, so that's going to happen. But they average gaining 552 yards per game, so that kind of makes up for it. So when I look at this game, Tennessee is just they they've got to continue to put the pressure on offensively. This is a Florida defense that can be had and that can have points scored against it. And when you look at this, this is a road game for the Vol. So this is a game where they could take the crowd out of it by scoring some quick points. And again, this is an aggressive style of defense, but the way that Tennessee plays, the style in which they play, actually makes this a pretty good matchup. But when depth takes over, honestly, I think that's kind of where the Gators are favored and why they're favored. But again, it's going to be fun to watch. There's going to be some points scored in this game, Craig. What are you and fellow Tennessee fans expecting from this Florida game?
I don't expect them to win. That's for sure. I think the key to the game is going to be Tennessee's offensive line being able to keep uh, Hooker, Milton off his rear end the entire
Well,
night,
if
evening.
Tennessee
Well,
wants to
night. It
win,
is at night. Yeah.
Tennessee wants to win, Joe Milton needs to stay on his rear end
Yeah.
on the
Well,
bench.
I'll go with you and say Hooker. They have got to keep him upright,
Yeah.
um, and uh, that is essential for this to happen for them to win the football games because
Yeah.
you know I expect Tennessee. I think Tennessee will score points. I really do. I think the 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 plan that Heupel has, the offense that Heupel has. He has. I just think that they will score some points. Now, um, to me, I think Florida has the ability to really pressure Tennessee, really pressure the quarterback enough to really harass him, to really mess up that offense a lot, and potentially bog them down. So to me, that's the key of this ball game is Tennessee's offensive line, whether or not they'll be able to hold up against the Florida pass rush.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest concern. I mean, Florida's going to bring pressure. We know that. So Hooker's going to have to get the ball out fast, or he's going to have to get some yards scrambling. Jabari Small, I think, in the rushing attack is going to have a big game, and then defensively, just take advantage of Emory Jones and force him to beat you through the air because he hasn't shown consistently that he can do that. So if you can force him into some turnovers, score some quick points, you never know where this game could go. I mean, this game could get real interesting real fast. And Tennessee could say, Tennessee just honestly, they have, I mean, it's the SEC. Everybody has a chance every week. That goes without saying. But um, I think that there's some things that Tennessee can do. Now, obviously, they have to be on point and be playing at a 10 out of 10 for most of the game to make a lot of these things happen. But there is a chance, and there are some things they can do. One of them is scoring a blitzkrieg of points, taking the crowd out of the game, and of course, getting some more takeaways and taking advantage of Emory Jones's lack of accuracy.
Well, I think too. I think Georgia. I think Florida needs to play. Not. I'll say. I think they need to give Tennessee some points, as in whether that be turnovers deep in their own territory, interceptions, whatever returns or touchdowns, special teams, whatever. I think Tennessee needs to get some quote unquote free points in this ball game to win, and I think
Yeah.
I think Florida has to help Tennessee out in order for Tennessee to win.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's their only chance. And again, they have to play a clean game, no penalties, no giveaways themselves, things like that. So, just this is an interesting game. Of course, the one week out of the year that I'm rooting for Big Orange. So I like that. But the chat is really, really on fire. Guy is just he's just going crazy. He says, "Nice cup, Craig. Bet you like receiver you. No fruit sucks better than the big orange. I like you already, Guy." Luke Shaw comes in and says, "Ole Miss is capable of beating Bama by 20." That is true, but so is Bama. Bama's capable of beating Ole Miss by 20, 30 points. That's kind of the nature of that beast. The Lions are falling apart, or is more commonly known as just a normal game for the Lions. P. Willie is on the Manning cast. Are you surprised? Um, Share what you're smoking, Luke. I'm an Ole Miss fan, says Guy. Uh, and Jake says, but they won't. That's probably true too. A lot of facts are being displayed on the chat, um, and that's the fun of the SEC. Um, be interesting October 2nd. It'll be very very interesting. That'll be something that Jake Thomas. And I imagine Steve is going to get on Best of the West and try to defend the Rebs on there from what's going to be, I guess, a bloodbath. Jake Thomas is going to be ruthless, right? So it's a fun time to be an Ole Miss fan, I guess. So, but yeah, there you go. Our last game, like I said, I'm expecting Tennessee play hard, play fast, play physical, play and really just kind of fly around and try to find some depth and give yourself a chance to win. So you'll never hear me say this again, but go Vols. All right. Our last
Thank
game
you, Corey.
in the Eastern Division. You're welcome. I have to do that every year. I hate Florida that badly, right? Is Kentucky South Carolina, which really is an interesting matchup. I should say, because Kentucky's kind of struggling right now. They struggled to finish off Missouri. Um, they struggled this week against UT Chat, which could be just a mental thing, right? But when you look at South Carolina, a team that plays really hard, they're going to give themselves chances at big plays. But to me, in this matchup, the depth is greater at Kentucky, and the talent up front and the ability to get after the passer, I think, is going to disrupt South Carolina ultimately. I think I mean, honestly, conventional wisdom is going to tell you that it's going to be a blowout. But when you really look at it, when you really kind of study how Kentucky has played the last couple of weeks, which they got off to a really hot start against Missouri and then kind of let Missouri back in it, struggled against UT Chat. I just think they're going to have to find some more consistency offensively, and I think they're going to have to figure out how to start finishing some people off defensively.
Yeah, like I said, I don't really. I'm not going to judge them by the Chattanooga game. I think that was just a fluke. They were overlooking Chattanooga after a big
Yeah,
win against
yeah,
Missouri,
probably
and
is.
that's going to happen. I expect them to come out and play much
This
better
the
against
spread is
South
five and
Carolina.
a half, by the way. Kentucky's favorite.
Kentucky's 5.5.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
in
I,
Columbia.
yeah. I expect them to play much better in this game. I tell you though, South Carolina, this is going to be their first SEC game under Beamer at home, and that crowd's going to be fired up.
Yeah.
Kentucky's 3-0, and when's the last time that South Carolina fans were, fired up and foaming at the mouth for, Kentucky? So that should tell you something, how well Kentucky's is doing, and uh, I guess their success that they've been building on since Stoops has been there. At this point, they're if you're South Carolina, you're looking up at them. That's one of the teams you're going to have to beat to get where you need to be.
Absolutely. And if you're looking at this matchup, I mean, if Kentucky continues to be careless with the ball and not taking care of it, they are at a -6 turnover margin,
Yeah.
which that's the one that really kind of jumps out. I mean, you can look at average points scored, points allowed, all that good stuff, and you can kind of just watch them play and just see that okay, they were playing an FCS team and they just weren't really up for it. They just had a big week against Missouri, a big hard fought win against Missouri, games that they're in a type of game that they're not used to winning. And here you are looking at this -6 turnover margin where they only have two takeaways on the season and they gave the ball away 8 times. You have a team in South Carolina that has a +1 margin. They've actually had 7 takeaways. So a defense that can make big plays, can steal possessions. You look at it and go, are they talented enough to win? Obviously, their defense has given them chances, but there's just, to me, when at the end of the day, Kentucky can still play, I think, not at their best and win this game. They just got too much talent. I just think the talent overwhelms South Carolina here. I mean, you've got Wandell Robinson, Josh Ali, you've got Chris Rodriguez, who I think is going to get going rushing on the ground. I think Will Levis is going to have a better game here, and I think they're going to be more dialed in. And that's the biggest key. The mental component is really kind of the biggest thing.
No, I agree with you. I think they're going to be dialed in too and be ready uh, for this football game. I think it's like I said, it's another stepping stone for where that program wants to be, and they can't afford if they want to get where they want to be this year. They can't afford to lose at South Carolina.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, I- you know, and I do think, I think Kentucky's going to cover this, and they'll probably double the spread. They'll probably win by at least 10. And what South Carolina can be a hard, tough environment. It is hell's waiting room. It It's a fortunately it's a night game for Kentucky. But if you've ever been in Columbia, South Carolina for a noon kick, it is hell's waiting room. So they got very fortunate in that deal. So um, if you look at our chat, Jake Thomas is very high on Kentucky. He says Kentucky wins big. Luke Shaw says I'd be shocked if Bama beat us by 20. I think the experts have us underrated and Bama overrated. Really looking forward to beating Arkansas after they beat Texas A&M. Is Bama really ever overrated? Have they really given you a reason to believe that they're ever overrated? No, not at all. Um, is Ole Miss underrated right now? Probably so. Ole Miss is really, really good this year. And if Ole Miss is going to get them, this is the year, to be honest with you. Um, to be, if you really want me to be honest, this could be a lot like last year's game. I don't think any team's going to win by 20. Each team has the capability of beating the other by 20, but you combine all that. Not to make this an Ole Miss Bama preview show, but you combine both those things and you get a pretty tight game. So Kentucky wins this game by 3. Mark it down, Jake. So there you have
So you
it.
don't think they'll cover? Jake doesn't.
Jake, no, Jake thinks Kentucky will cover. Guy
Okay.
doesn't.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, Guy Caldwell thinks Kentucky is
Okay.
not going to cover. So Guy is going to put his money on the Gamecock. So we kind of know where that is. I'm glad to see the chat is alive and well. I'm glad to see my dial up. Knock on wood has allowed me to read most of the chat. So I think that I think the camera gods are out to get me tonight. I think that's the biggest deal. Um, so looking at that, those are the big game, or those are actually all the games in the SEC East, all conference games there. So very exciting week in college football. We're going to go ahead and make some early selections. We're going to kind of review a little bit. Let's see. We both picked Alabama over Florida to cover. We both lost that one. A&M New Mexico. I picked New Mexico. It was what, 30? So no, I did not win that one. You did though. You picked A&M.
I
You
did.
said
Yes.
you said they'd cover, and they did. I picked Arkansas. We both picked Arkansas. We won that one. Mississippi State. That was an L for me. That was a win for you. Good job picking Memphis on that one.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Good job picking South Carolina. Good Lord, you're going to make some ground up on me this week.
Well, I said that was my game. I said after I picked UAB last week too. I said if Georgia boat races South Carolina, I won't pick against Georgia the rest of the year. So fortunately, that didn't happen. So I can pick against them.
You were pretty nervous there for
if
a while,
need
weren't you?
be. Uh-huh.
You were pretty nervous there for a while, weren't you?
I was. Yes, I love that backdoor cover.
I'm sure you did. Penn State, they covered. They covered the 6 point
Yeah,
spread.
I
They
lost that one. You won that one.
I did win that one. Not sure what happened on the LSU game. Did
They
LSU
covered.
cover? They covered. That's good.
Yep.
I picked Stanford. They covered. We both
Yep.
did that one. Ole Miss, I think they covered, right?
Yeah. Yes. They were giving up 39. They won by 40. No, I'm teasing. They covered it.
We both took a big fat L on Oklahoma. Good Lord.
Yeah.
And then Texas, I think we both were on that one, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yes, they covered big.
Well, you had a better week than I did, slightly. But I came into the week 17-9. Any of those of you keeping score at home and are really good at math, what's my record for last week? What's my overall record? Somebody tell me, because it's not updated on the spreadsheet. Steve, you got some homework to do now. All right, so looking at the games. All right, looking at the games as we pull it up. I'm gonna give you the official line from betonline.ag. So let's see, where is it? I'm going to pull it up right now. Here we go. All right, we have betonline.ag. We're going to look at sports. I'm doing this like live and in person here. So, all right, we look at college football. College football. All right, so we look at first game that we're going to look at is going to be Missouri Boston College. Missouri is favored by 2.5, according to betonline.ag, on the road against Boston College. Craig,
Wow, that sort of
what is your
surprises me.
what is your final selection here?
Well, I said it'd be probably a pick or a three. I didn't think. I thought BC would probably be favored. That Missouri with that SEC tag, I think, carries some weight with the
Mm-hmm.
betters. I'm gonna take Missouri in this game. I think they'll cover that spread, but
Well,
it's gonna
yeah,
be tight.
I think it's I think it's a pick'em deal when it's a spread that low. So I'm going to take Missouri on that one. I think they're going to cover that. This could be close, but I still think they cover. And Guy, to answer your question, I didn't know Ole Miss was going to skull drag Tulane before I picked OU. I thought OU was going to skull drag Nebraska because I thought Nebraska was that freaking pitiful. Apparently OU is pretty awful too. So I took the L on that one. Georgia minus 34.5 against Vanderbilt. Georgia's 1-1 against the spread. Actually, no, they're 2-1 against the spread. Yeah, 2-1 against the spread. This year they covered a 6-point dog spread against Clemson. They covered against UAB. Did not cover against South Carolina. I think they cover this week. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. Vanderbilt's going to struggle to score, and if Vanderbilt can't score, I think Georgia's going to score 40 at least again. And I don't think Vanderbilt's going to get the backdoor cover like South Carolina did. They're not as good as South Carolina.
No, I agree with you. I'll lay the 34.5 myself.
All right. Let's see. Let's see what our other spreads are. Kentucky minus 5.5 against South Carolina. Well, are you buying that one?
I tell you, it's that amount of points is a little scary. But I'm still going to take Kentucky in this game, even though, like I said, that 5.5 is tempting. But I'm taking Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm going to take Kentucky as well. I think Kentucky doubles that spread. To be honest with you, South Carolina's going to put up a valiant effort, but I think in the end they're going to lose. So, and then lastly, before we start getting with some crazy spreads from around the conference or from around the country at least, Tennessee plus 20 on the road at Florida. Are you taking the points here? Does Tennessee have a shot? No.
No, I'm not taking the points.
Florida's only won one game against the spread this year so far.
Even though it's a little bit tempting because I think maybe Florida may have a little bit of a hangover from the Alabama game. I think that'll play in that's an advantage for Tennessee, I should say. But I still I would take the Gators. History says, Tennessee plays horribly there.
Yeah.
And they are not ready to compete with the Floridas just yet.
That is true. Okay, our crossover game, LSU minus 2.5 at Mississippi State. Wow.
It's interesting.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Because Mississippi State is awful. They just lost to Memphis.
Yep. That's interesting.
Wow. How do you see it?
Well, you know what? That's one of those games that I see the spread and go, why? So that makes me go, okay, I'm taking Mississippi State. That makes no sense. That spread makes no sense to me. That's why I'm taking Mississippi State.
When that game becomes, I mean, it makes about as much sense as I can't even talk, as Mississippi State being only 2.5 point dogs. It's basically a pick'em game.
Yeah, yeah. That's the reason why I'm taking Mississippi State. That to me makes no sense. I would think LSU would be more of a favorite in this ball game, and
I think LSU would be a 7-point favorite here.
Yeah, I don't understand, and that's why I'm taking Mississippi State.
Somebody knows something.
Yep, that's right.
I don't know if I want to be a fool or not and pick LSU. This is weird. I'm going to go with Mississippi State here. I might change my mind tomorrow night on Wednesday night on After Dark. But the Pirate, yes. Let's see. I'm trying to look for the highest spread of the weekend as of right now. Right now, it's Bama minus 44 over what Steve calls the mustard buzzards. How do you feel about that one?
I lay the 44. How's that?
There you go.
Southern Miss is god awful.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. Then you have, listen to this one, Akron plus 49.5 at the shoe.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Clemson is 10 point. Clemson opens up as 10-point favorites over NC State this week. That's kind of a low spread for that game.
Yeah, Clemson's had problems scoring 10 points.
I know they only got 14 on Tech.
Yeah,
on Georgia
they've
Tech.
had problems scoring 10 points.
What is that all about? But anyway, well, we've had enough fun here. Bama opened up at 44. Yeah, I'm gonna. Oh Lord, they might double that spread. Yes, Jake, that might actually happen. So that's going to do it for us here. We could probably go on all night, but we're not. We've probably been having too much fun. My internet is going to crap out again. My internet is about as tired as I am sometimes. So I guess that makes sense, right? If you want to follow us on social media, just look right down below at D. Craig Ladd. At Coach Burton 36 at Believe in Dogs. You can find us on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, letting you know when we're going live or when new content is posted. The Believe in Georgia Dogs channel, as well as Positively Ole Miss. Follow us on Twitch, like us on Facebook, share all of that good stuff. Too much fun. There's no such thing as too much fun, right, Jake? You're right about that. That's just, I have to say that because I don't know. I just have to say we're having too much fun. But yeah, absolutely. Thanks for making some comments, Guy. I'm glad you were a part of the show. I love to be interactive. I want this to be the most interactive sports show in the sports universe. Can that happen? Yeah, sure, that can happen. Here at Willis Digital Media, that can definitely happen. So, Guy, just for you, hotty toddy, right? So that's going to do it for us, though. That's going to wrap it up for us. Craig, any final thoughts before we let you go? I think he dropped out. So there we go. So we are the Beast of the East podcast. We are on the Believe Podcast Network. We're also on Willis Digital Media. We thank you for joining us. We thank you, all of you on the chat, for joining us. And find us, subscribe, like, follow anywhere you get your podcast as well. You can listen to us if you prefer the audio version, but you can catch me on Believe in Georgia Dogs. You can also catch me on SEC After Dark with Steve and Jeb. So for Craig Ladd, I'm Corey Burton. Thank you for listening. Have a great week and an even better weekend. We are the Beast of the East podcast, presented by betonline.ag and playactionpools.com. So long, see you later, and of course, good night. Go Dogs.